sort of year and a half with everything going on. So yeah, thanks so much for sitting down again, and yeah, I appreciate it.
All right, Sam. Thanks for having me. It's been a long time between chats, so yeah, good to sit down.
Sweet. All right. Is that going to work? I feel like that'll do.
You do some editing wizardry, I'm sure.
I'll figure it out. AI will sort it out.
It's on.
This is why you're not supposed to do this shit with one person. It's meant to be like a team of 2 or 3 doing it, but who's got money for that?
Correct.
Sick. Let me get my little notebook out. Just in case you say anything really wise and wonderful for me to
No danger of that happening.
for me to jot something down.
I'm really nervous. I feel like it's some sort of like job interview.
It could be. So Mr. Bevan, please tell me why we should look at hiring you for Magic Valley. What skills do you bring to the table?
I have 6 years of experience in the exact role.
Really?
Yeah. So didn't ask me to tell you about a time when anything to the...
So no, I can't. I'm never really. Job interviews are one of those weird things. I've never really vibed with them. Like I kind of feel like meet someone, you're like, okay, cool, great. Like I get you, and then I don't really need you to tell me how good you are. I'd rather see how good you are.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I have no idea where we're going to start with this either. But I mean, damn, that's like
It's fine.
that's an interesting thing from my perspective. I'm curious, yeah, how did you go about hiring or bringing people onto the team? Because ours is very intuitive, and then it's kind of like, let's just throw you into the chaos and see what happens.
Yeah, it's really funny how things have evolved, because I guess I came from, I went from a corporate background where we were like, I was hiring people, which was a very, structured process, interview process, multiple rounds of interviews. Obviously a written application first, and then you got multiple rounds of interviews and questions and, assigning people scores and all that sort of thing, to then going and working in a gym, right, where there's none of that. Like it's much,
how much
more.
You bench?
Yeah, it's like, can you submit me? No, like, it's much more pragmatic and tangible, and then to hear where I'm dealing with completely different skill sets of people that I don't really have any experience in. So yeah, ours is very much like yours now. It's like, well, if someone vouches that you're a good person, great, like that's good enough. Like, take people at their word, and then like, oh, here you go, let's see what happens, type thing.
Yeah, and that's why we stress it. Like we've just started up a recent like conversational series interviewing interns or people who've still at uni but have got work at startups, because yeah, it is really interesting hearing how different like like when you actually have to do work in a startup compared to like normal conventional work, it's such a different approach, and like almost antithetical to the way in which we're also taught things at uni. Like uni is very like, okay, cool, there is a right and a wrong answer for this test for the most part. This is a sweeping generalization, but yeah, when you're thrown into startup land, it's kind of like, no idea, it might even work right now and actually be bad in the long term. Like who knows with these things? You kind of just got to see how it goes. It's very like non-linear and all over the place and messy, and yeah, just finding people who have the capacity to navigate that and potentially steward others through the messiness of it all. Feels really important.
Well, everything changes so dramatically. Like you could give someone a task where you want X outcome, and then they'll do that, and then you'll change your mind, or something changes in the business in terms of priorities, and you're like, oh, well, now we need Y outcome. And they'll be like, well, you told me you needed X. Well, now, okay, I did, but now we need Y, and you need to be able to deal with that.
It's like job descriptions. I feel like when we brought Jan on to the team, or when he brought himself on, he was kind of just like, I'm going to work for you guys until you hire me. And we're like, oh, okay, awesome. But yeah, like the job description was like, oh, well, maybe it's this, maybe it's like strategy and ops. And then like 3 weeks later, it's like, maybe it's site lead. And then it just like constantly shifts and changes. And it can be really hard to pin down when you're such like a small company where everyone kind of has to do a little bit of everything.
Yep.
But as we've started to grow, and I'm curious, if this is something that you're having to go through as well, it's like as you start to grow, it's like things start to get a little bit more passed out into, okay, cool, you're going to do this, you're going to do that. And that process is, I don't know, we've found it really, really interesting with having to scale up to multiple sites and then exploring Sydney as well. It's kind of like, oh gosh, like how do we make this work whilst keeping the heart of like what makes this thing special? And I imagine, no different to like MV, it's like, how do you bring people into the team and make sure that as it grows, it still keeps that sort of core essence?
Yeah, no, my experience is exactly the same, and particularly like Yarn's approach, I think is the best approach for someone to show you like what they can actually do and how they're going to help the company and move you forward is much better than someone, sending a cold email going, oh, I've got this qualification and that qualification, particularly when you're in a startup. Like it's so outcome based. Like you need to know that people can do what you need them to do and show you that they can help you and how they're going to, push you forward as opposed to theoretically, what they might be able to do.
Like 4 things I read in a book that I'd love to test out with you. Yeah. Versus like, to that point, like, okay, cool. Like they might approach you and say, how can I help with something? Or is there anything you might need a hand with? Or actually coming to you with, hey, I've looked at what you're doing. I reckon you could try this, this, and this. And it's like, it's a real difference when people come at you with like, it's pre-prepared rather than just like spraying out to try and find anyone who'll try and give you a job or something
100%.
like that.
Yeah. Because that's giving you more work. Like if you come to me and go, oh, I've got this great background in, I don't know, marketing, well, then I have to go and figure out what you can do and how you can help us. Whereas if you come to me and go, oh, I've had a look at your business and I can do this and this will help you get to this, it's completely different. It's like chalk and cheese.
How did you, so is that like, I'm curious, like, because you've had a couple of interns come through now as well. And how have you found that whole process of like bringing people through? Has there been though, like the differences between folks who are very much like, all right, I'm in it to win it, I'm going to figure out what needs to be done versus people who are like, oh my God, this is not what I thought I'd be getting into?
Yeah, we've had a really good run with interns probably over the last 12 to 18 months, I guess it's been. And different roles really. So we've had interns in the lab and just recently we've had interns on the commercial side as well.
Oh, cool. I haven't seen any. I've been down in Notting Hill the last like 8-12 months. So I've missed kind of like.
I was going to say I haven't seen you in about a year, so that checks out. So we've had a mix of both, and you're right. There is a real difference, and it's not just with interns; it's with everyone. But there is a real difference in levels of, I guess, proactivity and also ownership. I guess, and in obviously a startup environment, the more proactive someone is and the more they take ownership of things, the better and the further they'll go. Whereas, as opposed to, sitting back and waiting to be told and, having theoretical answers, people that just jump in and do things are, worth their weight in gold.
Yeah. When I think of that, I think of like Ella, when she sort of jumped into the mix with you guys, like didn't even necessarily have the marketing background, right? It was SciComm, I believe, like she did like one unit on it. And then it's like, all right, this is my life now. I'm gonna steer this ship. And it's been wonderful to watch that, that whole arc of that happening. So that's a really good case in point of kind of what we're talking about.
A perfect example of someone coming to us and saying, oh, I've had a look at your social media. I think, you could get a lot of improvement from doing this, this, and this. And here you go. I've already done it. Here it is.
Yeah.
And so that just created a role out of thin air because we weren't looking for anyone. There was no role. It was just someone coming to us and going, I can help you move from A to B. Away you go.
Because I did think it was a really strange, like, next thing, because like a lot of other, of our other members, they all acknowledge the importance of marketing and content creation and narrative storytelling. But, like, oh, we can't afford that. And I always thought it was quite an interesting take. And I guess, you guys are a consumer facing product in a way. Like it's like B2B.
Well, eventually we will be. We don't have a product at this point.
I mean, I've eaten something.
Well, that's true. That's true. But sorry, no, go on.
No. I honestly lost the train of thought. I can't remember.
We've got a really large education piece. Like obviously every business is different. We've got a really large education piece with the innovation, which you've eaten, that we're developing. So, you've got to educate the consumer. We don't have a product available for sale as yet. So we're different to a lot of businesses in that regard. But marketing is still really important for a number of reasons, even if you're not, at the point of selling a product.
Signaling the process along the journey, right? It's like, hey, we've come from here to here and like, look how awesome this is. And I really, that's what I loved about how you guys had the podcast up and running so so early on, you're like, we need to be talking about this and the narrative and what's going on. And just made for really entertaining content as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, things have changed a lot over, the last 5 or 6 years, whereas, we talk to people, or I would talk to people about, what we would have called then clean meat. People call it cultivated meat now, as we do. But I would have mentioned that then, and like nobody had any idea what I was talking about. Whereas now, it's probably about half the people that you interact with have at least heard about it, understand it, have got some knowledge of it. But just going back to the marketing piece, it's really important for investment as well, because if people don't know who you are, haven't heard about you, how can they invest in you if you're not visible? And so, not only with the podcast, we've done, as much TV as we possibly can as well to bridge that, getting into mainstream.
Probably like more than any of our members. I think you've ticked the TV bucket.
Yeah. But again, it's just, we can be in, industry publications or industry media or whatever, which is great. But to broaden that base of, people being able to see you need to get into mainstream. And so we'll take any of those opportunities as they come up.
Speaking of mainstream, what's been your favorite, like one of those TV appearances? Like, as I saw you,
none of them. I hate it.
I feel like because you Shark Tanked it or something like that, right? You had Gordon Ramsay.
Yeah.
Did he swear at you?
Shark Tank styles. Gordon Ramsay's Food Stars with both Gordon Ramsay and Janine Ellis, where, yes, we did have to go and pitch the business, or do multiple pitches throughout the casting for the show. But, yeah, the actual show, you're pitching the business, which was very intimidating. Yeah, super intimidating. A bit like this, really, with all the cameras and lights.
All the gears, yeah.
Yeah.
I know, it's a bit like that.
And a star that I'm in front of. Yeah.
Stop it. Oh, yeah, it's funny what you just pick up by osmosis. Like when I was in that space, I'm like, okay, cool. That's where you put a light. That's how it works. I guess it's kind of just like basic geometry. Not to try and take it away, like lighting is an art form, but it's kind of just like geometry. Okay, cool. Yeah, that makes. The Shark Tank thing. Did they invest?
No, we didn't. We didn't get any direct investment from Gordon or Janine. But having said that, and this really proves, I mean, it's hard to quantify, but like so many people, that we speak to now will say, "Oh, I saw you on Gordon Ramsay's Food Stars. Oh, I see Gordon Ramsay has tried your product," and so I think that credibility that adds in terms of not just Gordon Ramsay, but mainstream TV, for example, gives you that added credibility of your business and what you're doing, and gives you some validation. And that again, it's really hard to quantify, but similar with the podcast as well. Like people will say to us, long after they've invested, they're like, "Oh, I've listened to your entire podcast series," and you just don't know how much that actually adds to people making an investment decision or a purchase decision or whatever the case may be.
I agree, man. It's like every one of those individual points out there where if you don't talk about it, people don't know.
Yeah.
But and the more information that's out there, the more easy it is for people to relate to it, and then the more they become familiar with it, the more they are more likely to invest in it or more likely to purchase that product. But even, like we call it marketing, but it really is just like trying to share a narrative and open up the Overton window of what's possible and being like, look, this is a really viable way to feed people. Yes, like acknowledging that there is still like energy things that we need to try and sort out, and also getting things to scale. But hey, like here is a potential, method of the future of food, and it is something worth exploring and investing in and sort of seeing how it goes. And I mean, so in that time, since you've been here as one of our first members, we've had so many cultivated meat companies come through as well. So it really does feel like it's starting to build a bit of a movement. We've even got the Peak Body here as well, Salag Australia, which I think we've just gone. How did we go with? I feel like we've just gone in on something recently with you guys. Do you remember what it was? Are we allowed to talk about that yet?
I don't know what we're talking about, so I don't know if I can help you there. What are we talking about?
I think so. We're doing something with Salag Australia, maybe looking at trying to get some grant funding to help cultivated meat companies with access to infrastructure.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've...
Yeah, there's plenty of those things going on in the background in terms of like joint applications and submissions. Stuff. Yeah, absolutely.
It feels very alive right now with collaboration, even, between different organizations. Like I know you guys have been chatting with Pythag about stuff as well.
Yep.
Just really feels like, I don't know, like it's one thing to again, with marketing and content creation, it's one thing to say a thing and be like, oh, this is amazing, or like my product does this, and or collaboration is key. It's another thing to like witness it happen firsthand in these spaces that we're trying to make and then facilitate that. So yeah, having Pythag and you guys working with them, and then Cell Egg Australia as well. It's like I don't know, it really does feel like that little ecosystem is starting to bubble away.
Yeah, I mean, you know how much I love it here and love you, and
Yeah.
all the help that you've given us. But even in building, as you said, building the ecosystem, being able to, engage with people face to face on a daily basis, just makes those relationships so much more easy, I guess, to progress to like collaborations and that sort of thing. And it really is invaluable to what we're building, because we've been through, a really quiet period, I think, in terms of the industry over probably 12 to 18 months, where it's been really hard for everyone. But even being able to, talk to other people within the industry, talk to another founder, talk to people that are going through, similar headwinds that you're going through, and then come out the other side of it, which I think we've been doing over the past probably three or 4 months. Work on more collaborations, do more joint ventures. It's just super, super valuable.
Yeah, man, it really has been hectic. Like the last 12 months, I think across the board for innovation, we really noticed like a dip in people expressing interest, or people expressing interest, but then being like, oh, but like, our investors are just, not putting the money down, or there was a lot of, I don't know whether it's the stuff happening in the US with the tariffs. I don't know whether it's other geopolitical tensions that are happening through APAC, or I don't know whether the wind's just blowing the wrong way, but it really has felt like everywhere, say aside from the classics like medtech, health tech, which seem to kind of weather all storms. Like, and I guess as well, AI, the real hype bubble of AI was sort of like last year as well, with GPT-4 and stuff coming out. So you're feeling like it's coming back on track. So that's exciting. I mean, I feel like you won. What did you win? Like most perseverant founder of the year award. Was that what was that?
I mean, that sounds pretty good. Something like that.
What was that? What was the actual title of it?
Oh, don't ask. I don't know. I'm not going to remember now.
I feel like it was something like that. I remember seeing it, and I'm like, I have to actually agree with that award. Like, I feel like you are someone who just like really you've committed to this, and you're just like pushing as hard as you can, even though it's pushing you beyond breaking point multiple times, and you just, no matter what, you're still just like, I know that this can be done and that this is a worthwhile mission, and I'm going to try and make it happen. So no matter what the cost. And yeah, like, I don't know. A lot of the time we might not hear the sacrifice or the stories about how bloody hard it is, because it all happens behind closed doors, like you're saying, when we talk to other people in the space. But no, yeah, just very much like a public hat tip to you for like just grinding away, because I know how painful it can be to try and make something happen, even though other people are like, yeah, sure, that's great, but maybe not actively supporting, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like plenty of people cheering you on from the sidelines.
Yeah.
Or you're like getting mauled by a lion.
Yeah. Watching you get mauled. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I appreciate that. Yeah. Look, it's definitely been a tough few years, to be perfectly honest. And as I mentioned before, we're super grateful for your support, CoLabs support, and without it, we wouldn't have got through it. But I think through those times, the trust that you have, I guess, in your team and the people around you, to be able to get through it and see it through is really important. And you go through some of those hard times, but it also, you've got to have some uncomfortable conversations a lot of the time, and you're facing things that you never expected and you never thought would come up. But I've found that through that, those relationships have actually strengthened through those really difficult times. Relationships that you didn't think were that deep turn out to be way deeper than you expect, and it just really fortifies you like for moving forward. I mean, as you said, like I'm pretty committed. It might be I don't know if this is a personality trait or a personality fault, but I'm like pretty stubborn and determined to make sure that this is successful. And so just keep on persevering, as you said, and you come up with solutions that you just find a way. You just have to find a way. And so, been through many of those periods over the past, particularly the last 12 months, when particularly companies in our space, would have faced, it's not just us, it's the entire industry in terms of like fundraising challenges, and which is really difficult when you're a pre-revenue company and you're relying on investors or grants. To be able to just run the business on a day-to-day basis, let alone, hit milestones and make progress and push the business forward. We've also had a lot of great investors, particularly mission-aligned investors that, helps you, on a day-to-day basis. It's not that you need a reminder of why you're doing it, but as you know, I'm completely mission-driven in terms of what we're doing. And, those people that have invested in you, you've got to think that, you might not hear from them all the time, but they've supported you, they've got skin in the game, as it were. And there's just so many drivers, for what we're doing. Obviously for me, it's, around animal welfare, but, there's so many reasons for us to be doing what we're doing, and it really does need to happen. And so, I'm pretty bloody minded when it comes to that. But having said that, and you've seen them, there's been a lot of down times, as well. That's been, you don't know what to do. You're like, you hit with this hurdle, and it's like you just don't know what to do. And it's people like yourself, other founders, that you rely on. To be able to not necessarily come up with a solution, but just someone that you can relate to and have that conversation with.
Just being seen and heard sometimes is all that it matters.
Yeah, or whatever the saying is, a problem shared is a problem halved, or whatever it is. And it's so true, because you are isolated a lot of the time. And as a solo founder, you feel that, a lot. And depending on your personality type, some people will withdraw, some people, will need to talk through things a lot more. But it is super, super, super challenging. And then, sometimes, you might be embarrassed to share things, if things are going badly, or you don't know how to solve a problem, there's that, reticence to talk about it and bring it into the open. What are the people going to judge me? What are they going to say? All sorts of things. And it's really difficult as a business owner, because, as you said, they've got people cheering you on from the sidelines, but, and people will give you like well-meaning advice as well. But, that will often come from, people that haven't had the same experience, and it's the heart is in the right place, but what they're telling you is completely either useless or detrimental, or but you've got to take that on board. Like people are trying to help, but quite oftentimes that is not so helpful.
Not the most useful help.
Yeah, so there are other ways you can support. If you've got a friend or a partner, or whatever that has a business, and you're not experienced in that area, there's other ways you can support that person. And quite often it's just listening to them and letting them know that they're not alone, and you're there for them, and you don't have to offer actual practical solutions to the problems that are going on. You just need to be there. And I think that's really overlooked and quite important.
Yeah, I mean, I think since you guys have been here, we've always been like, we need to try and create like that founder club or a space for people to just get together and chat. But it's so hard, because it's like herding cats, and then herding the cats. It's just so hard to be able to bring people together. But every time, we do have things like that, or people do catch each other, it's always it seems like such a beneficial thing for people to be able to just like share space with one another. And to I think that was such a really good point about, like a problem shared is like then split in half, so to speak. It really does feel like so much of the time it's not about being in, so much of what we do is being in solution mode at all times. So it can be nice, for that to be turned off, and just I got no idea, man. I'm not looking for an answer, but it's just like I'm pretty burnt out. And then a lot of the time, from that place of just being heard, like the solution, the problem is the way a lot of the time, something might just pop up and you're like, oh, great. Like there it is. Like when you have that moment of just like, fuck.
Yeah, I mean, like those founder interactions are just invaluable, and particularly, what I've seen over the past 18 months, everyone is so focused on solving those problems that, you just become very insular and, people that you would have, spoken to previously or collaborated with previously, everyone has just been focused on, their own business and, keeping going and, whether it's surviving or sorting out problems or, making, really difficult decisions to, I don't know, pivot or end your business or whatever. But everyone, is just focused on that, and you lose that, or you can lose that interaction with other people and other founders and other companies through that. But that's when you need it the most.
Yeah.
To be able to, share those stories, provide support, receive support, etc.
Yeah, actually, on that note, man, there's been quite a few high-profile startups going to voluntary admission lately. Like we've had Great Wrap, and I know Natural Fiber Welding, another materials company based in the US. It has felt like it's been a bit of a hectic time for folks. I like, why are you still here? Have you? No, seriously, because it feels like so many, and I think I know where this is going to go, but I'm trying not to steer it there and just see if it comes out in conversation. But I'm really curious as to how you've managed to like maintain, sustain, keep things going. Like I've just yeah, because there's a lot of folks who've come in and they like almost like a supernova. They're like, yeah, we're gonna like 1000x, and then they just like, poof. What is it that you think has allowed you guys to persevere?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, obviously, as we mentioned, I'm pretty stubborn, so that probably
Yeah,
helps.
stubbornness doesn't just like make money come from thin
no,
air.
no, it doesn't. No, you're right. Look, I just have this like overwhelming, all-encompassing belief in that this is the way forward, and it will be successful, and it is, the best way to, help animals. And, personally, like I'm all in and have been all in, on the business from when it started, because I do like genuinely believe that this is the way to have the biggest impact for animals. Obviously, there's a whole lot of other benefits in terms of cultivated meat when it comes to, the environment. We can go on and on around, human health and, all those sorts of things, food security, food safety. There's so many benefits to it, and so I'm all in on that. If I was just doing this for a financial return, it would have made absolutely no sense to keep going.
Yeah.
I would have thrown it in months, if not
It's not
years
a
ago.
not a fame and fortune endeavor, that's for sure.
No, and if as I wasn't aware of those companies, what had happened to those companies you mentioned, and even within our industry, there's been companies go by the wayside, and maybe their technology didn't work, or it could be for a myriad of reasons. Obviously, not being able to raise funding is a massive one, which is quite often not a reflection of your idea or innovation or business, but it's just a result of the climate at the time. But for us, I just have that overwhelming belief in what we're doing, which drives me forward. But again, it's reflecting on the people that have supported us as well, because we've got quite a lot of investors now, but the majority of those are smaller investors, angel investors. They're very much mission aligned. They believe in what we're doing, and I view that responsibility of them investing. Like I take that very, very, very seriously in terms of the trust that they've put in us and in me in terms of building this solution, which is going to provide a lot of benefits to, as I've mentioned about 100 times now, animals, but also for generations going forward as well. And I just take that like very, 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 very seriously, in that people have supported us. They've got skin in the game, and they believe in what we're doing, and not just us, as Magic Valley, but as cultivated meat as a solution. And so, I take that responsibility seriously, but I also take the responsibility of, getting a result for animals very seriously as well. And there's a number of people, within particularly the vegan community that have also supported us as well. And I see what we're doing, as a part of that and being part of that community. And so I have this responsibility to them as well. And so, that pushes me forward as well. And so, as I've mentioned, I really do believe in this solution. We've got, we've had a lot of headwinds, whether it comes to fundraising or, the technology, or whatever the case may be. Obviously, we have, regulations and consumer acceptance and all those sorts of things. But it just keeps me going, like thinking about, who has supported us, what is the end goal that we're working towards, and just this unwavering belief. I can't remember who it was that said this, but they described it as delusional optimism. And you have to be
Or
like
messianic calling, one of those as well.
Exactly. You're working on this innovation that, people might not know that they need, but you're convinced that, it's necessary and it's required. And you just have this delusional optimism that it's going to be successful. And I guess that's what just, keeps me going.
I mean, there is that, right? But you've got to be like financially pragmatic and strategically I don't know what the right way of putting that would be. Like, you just have to be able to think well and clearly. And like, yes, you're delusionally optimistic, but you're not letting that cloud your capacity for seeing how you can then make it through this and then what your runway is.
Yeah.
Like every time we talk about runway or anything like that, I feel like, you're like, this is how much I've got. This is how much I'm going to need for this little bit here. Like, it just feels like you've got that side of things very down pat, which seems to be, I guess, an area that a lot of other founders might kind of be a bit more splashing of cash or this, that, and the other, which you tend to see a lot of the high profile companies having issues. It tends to be around like maybe not managing funds incredibly well, or to your point, it could just be like a lot of the time it is wrong time, wrong place.
Yeah.
Like now, especially for biomaterials, I feel like last year after the massive raises that happened in the food tech space, it was like a bit of a doldrums, as you said, moment for you guys. But still having those people come in and investing in what you're doing and investing in you guys and believing in it. But yeah, I don't know. Is like there anything from that sort of financial side of things that you think like, because that's kind of your bread and butter, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's a really interesting point. And, we've seen, particularly in our industry, a lot of money wasted, money going on, into the wrong hands, into the wrong technologies, development of the wrong technologies, and just a lot of waste. And I'm sure that happens across industries, right? And particularly when it comes to, venture capital funding. And obviously, I think a lot of it, depends on your background. I think a lot of it comes from your childhood as well, like how you grew up. What was your relationship with money? What financial background do you come from? Was your family wealthy? Were your parents wealthy? Did you do it hard? Did you have to work? And your early relationship with money, but then, after that, I think a lot of it comes down to, experience. And, as you mentioned, my background, primarily, I worked in finance, I worked in risk management. I did that for a number of years, and then I had other businesses prior to Magic Valley. So I founded 2 businesses from scratch. So you're starting with nothing, which very quickly gives you a crash course
in resourcefulness.
in resourcefulness, managing your cash flow and limited resources, but also in learning about sales and marketing very quickly as well. Because I came out of, which I'm sure a lot of people do, you come out of a fairly senior position within the corporate space, and you think, I've managed these teams, and I've got this budget and numbers, and you've got this money that's just given to you that it's your job to spend. You do that, but then, you go into a business, like, hey, I know how to run a business and I know how to manage this and do that. And then all of a sudden, like, you've never done sales and marketing in your life. And it's like, well, where do you think the money is going to come from, right? It's coming from acquiring customers and doing marketing and doing sales. And so I literally started 2 businesses from scratch. So, zero revenue, you put your own money in, you've got to start a business and find customers. And so, I'd done that with 2 businesses previously. So very aware of, where, money should be spent. It's interesting that you mentioned, the marketing role before. My approach to that is probably very different to, as you've mentioned, to other founders, where it's the lifeblood of your business. Because if, you can't be found, then you're not getting customers, you're not getting investment, like none of that's happening. So it is very important. But being able to manage through that, obviously a lot depends on your risk tolerance as well. I'd say mine is higher than the average person.
Which is ironic, working in risk.
Yep, very, very much so. But, you've got to be able to, as you said, allocate those resources. You've got to be able to budget. You can't just, fritter money away. And we've primarily spent our money, that we've raised on the technology, on the science, excluding the marketing stuff that we do. But other than that, I run everything on the commercial side. Like there's just me, and there has been for the entire time.
Man, that's so impressive.
All of our money has gone into the tech and the technology development, anything to do with, creating the actual product. And that's a conscious decision in terms of, milestones we need to hit, how do we progress forward, raise more capital, etc. And so I think it really does, it comes down to, your personal experience. If you're stepping out of, like a corporate role and, you raise all this money and you've got this pile of money sitting there and your experience is, well, we just spend it and we do this, and you don't really have to be accountable for it. And that flows over into, your startup. You're going to be in a world of hurt very, very quickly. And so I think it just depends on your experience. But that's I guess how I view it.
Were you one of those ones who started raising money in a little piggy bank early? What was your fun? Like, how was your upbringing around money? Because I know mine wasn't great, and this is something that I'm constantly having to learn how to like handle this. And it's not their fault. It was just, that was the time that they grew up and from their socioeconomic background. And so I've had to learn a lot of this myself, and I'm not very good at all at it. But yeah, was it something that you picked up on an early age, or something that you learned as a response to things in earlier life where you're like, I'm going to make sure that does not happen?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of that, to be perfectly honest, where, you grow up through, challenging circumstances at times. And, you probably, see friends around you or, people at school or that sort of thing have a very different experience than you have. If you go through some tough times, I think a lot of that fortifies you to be like, I'm never going to be in this situation again. And I guess it develops from there, and then, you educate yourself and, learn, about, finances and money and, wealth management and risk management, all of those sorts of things. And it just, some people are into it and some people aren't. And so some people it will come naturally to, others it won't. But I think there's always the opportunity to learn about that. And look, any experience that you have, not necessarily around saving money, but, if you had a lemonade stand or, whatever, or you've got to, work for your pocket money and those sorts of things, I think that teaches you a lot of lessons as well. And even then, when you begin to, start working and, you get paid, I don't know, X amount per fortnight or per month, regardless of how hard you work. And then you start thinking to yourself, I'm doing all this work, I'm doing all this extra, I'm getting paid the exact same amount, old mate over here does no work, does nothing, he's getting paid the same as me. And that starts, I guess, your entrepreneurial brain thinking. I'm like, well, hang on, if I worked for myself, I could, my earning capacity is unlimited. Why am I doing all this work for this employer and I'm just getting paid the same amount of money, and, other people are benefiting from it?
Yeah, I've had very similar. I mean, that I've never really, aside from like, pool lifeguarding or like working in retail when you're going through uni. Like I've always ended up working for myself for a similar reason, just being like, well, I'll just do this myself.
Yeah.
Like doesn't make much more sense than that. But that's just, a personality type. There's so many other people that I know who are like, absolutely hell no. I would rather just turn it off, 9 to 5, that's it. And if I can do what you said before, like get by on seemingly doing enough and getting paid, for the bare minimum, but it looks good enough. Like they're happy with that. But yeah, each to their own, right?
100%. Yeah, it's definitely a personality thing, and not everyone should start a business. Absolutely not.
Absolutely. I do not recommend it. I recommend against it unless it's absolutely necessary, right? If it's a mission calling, or if it's something that there is a clear challenge that we need to face and to address, whether it's like, hey, we've got like 10 years of topsoils left in Australia, or like food security is going to be a really big problem, or like water, all of these sort of things that are real, genuine challenges that we're going to face over the next 10 to 15, 20 years with the changing climate and political stuff. Like, if you're called to that, by all means, like commit to it, because we are going to have to address those things. But if it's something that you're kind of like, to your point before, like, oh, this would be pretty cool to do because like everyone really likes this space. Like maybe I'll do an AI startup because that's trendy.
Yeah.
Or if it's a power grab, it's probably people. I think people can see through it, to be perfectly honest. And I think that authenticity is super important.
Yeah, and I think the other thing as well, I mean, if you're doing something just for the money, you're not going to stick it out when times get tough. I mean, I think that's blatantly obvious. And the other caveat I would say is, you might have a great idea and you might want to do something that's going to have a huge impact, but it might not be a great business. The commercial reality might be that this isn't a great business. This invention's great and this is a great idea.
Oh man, we see it all the time. So many people come to us and it's like, yeah, this is sick, but is it, it's the whole desirable, viable, feasible kind of thing. It's like, yeah, great. That's nice, but does it, even if we don't like capitalism, with all its flaws, it's like, does it operate within that system? And if not, like, good luck.
Yeah, exactly.
It's an unfortunate reality of having to work in this space. It's like, I would much rather it was like co-ops and, we were doing local regional economies and, all the money flowed back into place. But, that's not where we are right now. And we have to work with what we've got to try and bring about those sort of changes. Have you experimented with any novel financing facilities or ways to get money into Magic Valley?
Define novel, Sam.
I don't mean like a drug cartel or something like that, but like I don't know, like have you looked into DAOs, crypto? Have you explored things like Birchall? Have you got like I'd be very curious to know. Yeah. Or is it all just kind of like finding those values aligned people?
Yeah, no, I'd say all of them.
Except the drug cartel, just to clarify.
Yeah, no, not the drug cartel. Nothing illegal. So yeah, look, we've explored all of those avenues, and it's really interesting because I know a lot of companies, have done, whether it's crowdfunding. Early on, we looked at, initial coin offerings and those sorts of things as well. When it comes to the blockchain, we also looked at, crowdfunding really intently. And, there's a lot of things that, look good from, the outside that might not be good for your particular business. There's a lot of, costs involved. There's a lot of marketing, obviously, again, because if no one knows about your offer, they can't invest in the offer. And when it comes to crowdfunding, what we sort of have uncovered is that, you've got to have that crowd. You've got to have the crowd to begin with.
Fund.
Yeah, and typically, food businesses go really well in that space. But, for someone like us who doesn't have a product, we don't have that crowd, so we don't have that group of users that, already use our product, love our product, and would, love to invest in it. And so for us, it's always been, we just don't know if this is the right fit for us. So we've had a look at that. Most of our investors are, mission aligned. They're angel investors. We've got a couple of smaller VCs on our cap table as well. Obviously, there's larger VC, which a lot of companies go down. We received our first government grant earlier this year
Ayo.
as well.
Nice.
Through
What was that through?
through the industry growth program,
Nice.
which has been great. Not just in terms of the funding, but the additional programs that they offer as well has been like super beneficial. And it's really the first government grant that we've really been eligible for.
Isn't that, oh man, we try and tell them this all the time. It's like, yo, like we need to address the grants because they're either clearly made with a specific company or type of person in mind, which don't get me wrong, like that tends to be the case a lot of the time. Like we've got grants that have been made for us. Like that has happened multiple times. So I totally understand that. But yeah, it is so strange how we talk about wanting to support startups, but like, it's like, oh yeah, if you've got 5 million revenue already, or if you want to 1-to-1 match this like $3 million grant, and, or like you're 20 FTE, and you're like, yeah, like none of these things fit the criteria. And almost everyone we know when applying for grants are having to apply as a exemption,
Right,
So it is, and this is something that we, again, why we've been chatting with CoLabs Australia, why we're talking to the government and looking at potentially getting some additional funding is to try and get enough money for people to be able to do work at CoLabs for 6 to 12 months, hire people, like, because it's such a small amount of money compared to what they might allocate out for a grant to be able to let someone validate something over 6 months. And we could be doing that and be a very entrepreneurial state. But yeah, it's like a lot of the time the largest person in the room or the loudest person in the room can sort of get funding, and it might tend to go towards conventional approaches or things that already have received money or are in favor. So it is a bit of a black box trying to navigate government funding. So congrats on making it happen, man.
Thank you. Well, I mean, it's also match funding as well.
There you go, the 1-to-1. Can't escape.
Exactly. But your point around not being eligible as a startup is 100% spot on, because the definition of startup isn't what an actual startup is in terms of the eligibility criteria for all these grants. It's scale up. They talk, as you said, you've got to have 20 FTE or you've got to have this amount of revenue. That's not a startup. Like that's just not a startup.
Just to be clear. Yeah.
And so, we just didn't fit into any of those categories most of the time. But then also, in terms of what we're doing, which is really food tech, we're just excluded from so many other categories.
You don't fit into a box.
You don't fit into a box, exactly. You're excluded from ag tech, you're excluded from med tech, and so we just didn't fit anywhere. And so this program has been great. I know a number of other founders that are part of the program as well. And it is super helpful. But again, yes, 1-to-1 matched funding. And look, I understand that investing or providing grants to startups is risky, but high risk, high reward, right?
Where else are we going to get returns from?
Like, where's the innovation going to come from if you're not funding,
especially when you
those
see
startups?
How much money gets blown up in like pointless infrastructure projects or just like other random things where you're like, wow, like if we just allocated out like 1% of revenue to be able to support new and amazing ideas, it would be amazing to see what could happen. And, from a systemic investing perspective, that's something that we're really advocating for and trying to push for. And we are really curious about exploring, like, can CoLabs set up a venture studio? Can we try and find ways to fund and support startups early on so they don't need to take riskier forms of capital, and which might, no offense, like, the venture capital pathway is a really valid one, but some companies don't want 1,000x. Some companies don't need 1,000x. Some companies just would like to be 10x or 5x or just be a viable business that doesn't even need that sort of money. But we kind of, we're fed that, this is the path to success, it has to be like that. It's the same with, like, if you go to uni, or you got to do the PhD, it's like, or you could, get a job in industry or do something else. But it's like everything has their own narrative and their own self-interests. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's fine. That's just what the world is like. But it's acknowledging that and realizing, well, you don't have to just raise capital the traditional way, or you don't have to just do this. And the reality is, in this world, we're going to have to try and find different ways to fund and support new ventures. And yeah, I think we're really well positioned, just selfishly from this perspective of CoLabs. I think once we build up this distributed network of innovation infrastructure across Australia, then with very little funding, we can start pooling together really talented people and start trying to address some of these challenges in each of their sort of bioregional contexts. And I just think that's a really exciting prospect. And, I wish we already had something like this up and running so that we could be, working closely with you on it. because like we absolutely love what you're doing, as you know, and would like back it until the cows come home. We're good.
Which they will.
Yeah, that's it.
No, you're 100% right, though. I mean, the venture capital model doesn't work for most businesses and most industries. And,
Well, it's made for
and
tech.
most companies.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's,
exactly.
it's not made for deep tech where it's a scientific breakthroughs and things might take 15 years. I feel like a lot of those high profile failures come from folks trying to force something being what it is not yet. And I understand why. I empathize why they're having to do that, because they've got $25 million from people who are like every day, like, so, like, is it done yet?
Yeah.
Where's my money? Where's my money?
Yeah.
Like, you told me it was going to be done. It's like, yeah, I wrote you a business plan, but like, it's kind of like the way that I think it's kind of like astrology. You know, it's like you write this 5-year business plan. I mean, it's not a science, you know. It's like it's an idea of what it might be like, and you're selling that vision. And the reality is that 95% of that's probably pointless.
Yep.
Like a lot of what we do is very much like emergent strategy, or things will just pop up, or you have to kind of address it in the moment. Yeah, it's good to have this idea of where you're heading towards, but the reality is, like in these sort of spaces, you don't know what the path is.
That's right.
2 years down the track, you might go, oh crap, you know what? Someone's just created because I know like one of the major roadblocks for, and we can go there because I'd love to talk to you about what's happening in the space. But one of the major roadblocks was medium, right? So that's like a big thing. Like it's really expensive to get culture media, because initially it was all made for scientists doing research and not like bulk. And it was also using like fetal bovine serum.
Yep.
Not great. You know, now we've got places like Katie Bishant Day's startup, I think, are doing an alternative. I think, I'm not sure if you know her.
Yeah.
But like, you know, and something like that to be able to bring the cost of that right down, we might make, you know, this product price parity with others. So there's so many things like that that just happen. And I guess I'd love to know, like, what are some things that have recently been happening in the space or adjacent spaces which are going to have either a positive impact, you think, on cultivated meat as a sector?
Yeah, it's a great question. I want to circle back to the grant funding in a minute as well, but
we can loop back there.
Yeah. Look, there is a lot going on in the space. You know, unfortunately, we've seen a few companies, you know, go by the wayside. But as I said, you know, perhaps that technology was, you know, not right for the application that it was intended. But yeah, I mean, cell culture media, you know, is a huge one. It's the largest input cost in terms of, you know, us developing a product, bringing the cost down. For the components in the cell culture media is a real driver, and there's a number of companies working on that. As you mentioned, one of the really interesting things though that's happened is that, you know, a lot of a lot of stuff we purchased, particularly in the early stages, was from pharmaceutical companies, and so developed for, you know, therapeutics and that sort of thing. From these really large companies that, you know, were not selling a lot of them and were charging, you know, really high prices, you know, whereas, you know, what we're doing, you know, typically we need, you know, a lot more. So, you know, we need larger quantities of media, we need larger quantities of the components within the media, larger quantities of bioreactors, for example, consumables, for example. And so, which is kind of the opposite in terms of the model. We need, you know, higher volume and at a lower cost. And so for us, you know, and particularly for a lot of those companies in our industry that raised a lot of money, you know, early on and really didn't have any other choice but to purchase, you know, for example, bioreactors or media.
Build their own. Yeah.
Exactly. That's the alternative. But, you know, we're forced to pay these really high prices for, you know, equipment. So their capital expenditure is huge. And, you know, I've spent all of that money on these facilities that, you know, potentially are not currently operational, but, you know, they really didn't have a choice. So that money's been spent. Well, what's happened, you know, there's been smaller providers or direct manufacturers that have seen the opportunity, you know, in the cultivated meat space, you know, where they produce or manufacture, let's just use bioreactors as an example. You know, they manufacture the bioreactors that go to the pharma companies that, you know, stick a label on them and they're sold at high prices. Well, because the pharma companies didn't want to, you know, didn't want to deal with this, but couldn't get their head around, you know, what what we were doing and the
operating from a different
opportunity.
worldview.
Yeah, exactly. It's it's a different model. They've got different sales targets and ability to negotiate on price and the pricing model and all that sort of thing. Well, a lot of these manufacturers they've seen the opportunity. They're like, oh, hang on, all these people want to buy this media or buy these bioreactors, but it doesn't need to be at pharmaceutical grade. They're looking for food grade, and they can produce them, en masse at a tenth of the price, if not lower than what everyone was paying previously. And so they're all now selling direct to the customer, being us, in terms of media, in terms of bioreactors, in terms of consumables. And so, this perception that still pervades today of you've got this massive capital expenditure and it's really expensive and our media is really it's just not true. It's just not true at all.
Just repeating what they heard 3 to 4 to 5 years ago. But
exactly.
Like anyone knows in tech, and what's fascinating about biotech in particular is like when you look at Moore's law, like that was for semiconductors. When you look at it for biology, it's actually like even more like, is it superlinear or supralinear? I can't remember the word. You're the math guy.
I'm just going to say pronounced. It's even more pronounced for
biology.
100%.
So I'm curious, like, and we don't have to use actual numbers. Maybe we can just use ratios or something like that. But I'd be curious to know what the initial cost of doing things were versus like where you're at now, and whether or not that's like a 5-10x difference or whether it's even more. Like I'm really curious, like, because that's something that we don't hear about, because usually it's like, you hear about the negative things, but I'd be curious to see, where are you at with it?
Yeah, well, I mean, the two biggest costs, I mean, if you talk about capital expenditure, it's bioreactors, so what the cells grow in. A reactor that would have cost, and still does cost from a pharmaceutical company, $2.5 million, we can buy for $200,000. So it's not even close. And then
I just don't understand. I don't understand that. I don't know how it can be such a discrepancy.
Because that price is not the price of what it costs to make. That's just the price it could be sold at, right?
I just don't know.
Price maximization.
Yeah, but this is the issue as well. And this again, like bringing it back to, I guess, the need for a systemic approach and systems innovation, and that there are perverse incentives. It's like so many of those people were either selling to pharma, who are making bajillions of dollars, like that's a real quantity, or academia, who if they don't spend their money, then it's not great. And for them, a lot of times, like the more money you spend, the better it sounds. Yeah. We bought this $2.5 million bioreactor. How amazing is that? Whereas in the industry facing side of things, it's like how am I supposed to do that? I can't do that. Like that's suicide, buying that sort of bioreactor.
Yeah.
Have you seen any, just before, I know you want to loop back to the grant funding. Yeah. But before we loop back there, I just wanted to know, like, have you seen any innovations in, like, so we're talking about purchasing items. Has anyone started doing product as a service system models for bioreactors? Like kind of like how CoLabs is, hey, come and, get a membership and use the space. Is there anyone who's doing, hey, come and get a membership and use our bioreactors? Or is it still like, I mean, I know we're talking to people trying to push to make something like that happen so that we can have a space for people to experiment with bioreactors. I think we're doing all right with a couple of folks. I won't name anything, but Is you seeing anything like that?
Similar, but not exactly. So obviously, when it comes back to the conversation around managing money, we've had a lot of trial bioreactors, where a company will give you a reactor to trial, see how you go with it. Obviously, they want to eventually, sell it to you, and you'll use it ongoing. So we've had that experience with a number of companies. Which is great, which is the way it should be. Like you need to be able to use something before you decide to buy it, particularly when it's a large value purchase. There are, in terms of bioreactors, there are a couple, at least now, companies that are looking at subscription type models.
Interesting.
Yeah. So again,
is that media as well, or just the
reactors so far that I've come across, in terms of, here's this reactor, you pay, I'll just make up this number, $1,000 a month, subscription fee to use the reactor. And there might be like the the opportunity to, purchase at the end of the term or
Okay,
something
kind of
like
like a
that.
Chattel mortgage.
Yeah,
style.
exactly. Yeah. As opposed to, it's going to cost you, $200,000 up front. You can, and it's like exactly like a lease agreement type thing. So we've seen that starting to, but that's not coming from the pharma companies. That's coming from, smaller startups who are like, oh, this would be a better model for, what you need.
Yeah, it is really interesting how I can't remember who said it. It's like, but sometimes, at least in science, it's like worldviews shift like one death at a time, and it also feels like a lot of times, like if a company only knows one way and that's how they've been successful their whole life, you almost can't really blame them for being that way.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like you don't expect them to be that way. It's just like in a Bucky Fuller way, it's like just wait for someone who's going to design a new system that makes that one obsolete, or who has designed it to fit your ecological niche, rather than trying to pander to folks who are kind of like, not even like just over the head, but like out of the stratosphere over the head. So, okay, that's cool. I'm glad that
100%.
that's starting to. Is there anything else before we loop back to grant funding? Because I know you want to go there. Is there anything else, like things happening in the space that you think are pretty exciting? I mean, obviously for Zans, we had the approval with Val's products.
Yeah.
Have you heard anything from your end?
No, not particularly. We had Fasans out here a few weeks ago, and they did a taste. You weren't around because you don't come in here anymore.
Don't bring that up.
We did a tasting for them, which went really well.
Nice.
Which was really great. No feedback I can give on in terms of Magic Valley, but in terms of Fasans, they're adding resources to a dedicated cellular agriculture pathway within the novel food framework, which is bringing the timeline down and the cost down, both by about half to what it was previously. So that's great for the entire industry, to fast track those applications and for it to be cheaper as well. I mean, free would be great, but cheaper is better than what it was before. And so like they're super open, and I guess there's this misconception, particularly in Australia, around how difficult and political it is in terms of getting a cultivated meat product regulated. I mean, the regulator's role really is to assess the safety of the product. Toxicology, microbiology. Is this safe to consume? What are the allergens? What are the risks, etc. It's not. Fasan's role is not to be, political or to push down one industry. It's to assess the safety of the product for human consumption. And so Fasans have been great to deal with the entire time that I've been working on Magic Valley, and that continues to be the case. They're very consultative. They want to see more novel food applications, more cellular agriculture products get approved. And basically, they make a recommendation that goes to the food minister, and then, the food minister makes a decision on, the recommendation from Fasan. So that's actually how it works. And so, they've been great to deal with. So there's, as you said, there's some movement in that space at the moment, which is, really positive.
Nice. Now, do you want to loop back to the grant funding?
I will. The other thing I mentioned before we loop back to that was around media costs, which, as you mentioned before, we would have paid, maybe you paid, a few years ago, you pay off the shelf, $600 a litre for cell culture media.
I remember back in the day, you were like, that's probably like a $10,000 dumpling.
Exactly. But for us, today, you'd be looking at $6 or $7 a litre with, still plans to bring that down to $1 a litre, at scale. And so,
and that was your number. So I don't think it's, if you can say it so casually, but that's a how many 1,000% reduction? You said it was $600 or $700 for a litre, down to $6,
exactly.
and then hopefully down to $1.
Yeah.
Like that's, if they manage to do that, that's like a 6,000% reduction in 4 or 5 years.
And we're not even like working hard on it. It's just what you had to pay early on. You do some media optimization, but then there's other, as I said, there's other companies that are producing the components of the media at just far cheaper prices, and so. That's literally with us hardly doing any work on the media side of things. And so, again, when people go, oh, media is really expensive and bioreactors are really they're not. They're just not. Anyway, going back to the grant funding side of thing, I wanted to mention as well, you might have heard of an organisation by the name of Voiceless, and they make, basically charitable, donations to organisations. But we actually received the first investment grant from Voiceless as well, who are in the animal protection space.
Oh.
Yeah, so we're really rapt to receive that and receive their support. But then the other thing I really wanted to mention, around alternative funding options, is we utilise the research and development tax incentive really heavily as well. And a lot of people complain about government funding and that sort of thing, but in Australia, like, that's a huge benefit to us and most other companies.
Do you hear about, I don't know, apparently at Bio, apparently there was talk about people being like, oh, we're a little bit over budget with the R&D tax incentive. Oh, not sure if we're gonna. I mean, if they scrap that, like, there's so many companies that's like essential.
You rely on it 100%,
especially when there's not that much else out there. And it just feels like the number one amazing thing that was really thoughtful, and I can't believe. I don't reckon they would, but like, damn, like, let's fingers and toes crossed. I reckon it'll stay in. It's such a useful.
I believe so. I mean, I was involved in a workshop around it many months ago now, and the people that some of the complaints around it were from much larger companies. So, like these multinational companies that have got, millions, if not billions in revenue, and they don't like how the program works for this tiny bit of like R&D that they actually do. Whereas to companies like us, who are basically all R&D at this stage, it's crucial for being able to operate. And if we talk about even more alternative sources of funding, most people probably don't know about this, that aren't in the space, but there are companies that will provide finance to you based on your future R&D return. And so again, that's another way of leveraging your future return for cash flow purposes as well. You can get that money in today that you were going to get in your return, August or whenever you file your tax return. You can get that today. Let's say it's whatever it is now, October still. Yeah, October.
5% interest, or I don't know what the interest is.
I mean, the interest is not great. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, you don't want to be paying that interest, but that brings that forward. So you've got that cash today.
Liquidity.
You'll spend more on your R&D, so you'll get an even bigger return when it comes to the rebate.
I didn't think of the double loop.
It's exactly how it works, and so. We've done that a couple of times as well. But there's these things that outside. You wouldn't think about, like it is an alternative, funding source and way to bring your cash flow to the present day.
Man, I'm just so impressed with like your ability to navigate that space and figure out ways to make it work. I think it really is admirable. It's kind of like the only way that I can think of putting it, because you really, like, I know for a fact that you've searched the entire landscape. You're foraging for finances and figuring out ways in which you can make it work. And I feel like, I don't know, if any startups or people are curious about it all, I feel like you're such a good person to be able to tap on the shoulder and talk through that entire process.
Yeah, I think I've explored almost all of the options. I'm sure there's some out there that we could still utilise. But I also come from a finance background as well, so I think I've got a bit of an unfair advantage there.
Yeah, fair enough. No, makes sense. But as I said, like, I think it is an unfair advantage, and I feel like, sure, like the mission is really important, but I do feel like that's such a big area that's meant that you've been able to like kind of Aikido your way through what's been like a really hectic sort of year and a half for innovation. Yeah, man. What else? Is there anything else worth having a yarn about while we've managed to pin you down?
We can talk about how great CoLabs is and all the things that are going on here.
This is not a marketing pitch for CoLabs, but is there anything that you've found really interesting, or any cool, like, any new members that you're like, hey, that's pretty cool, or anything?
Well, I mean, as you mentioned, obviously, particularly for us, we've got Salag Australia here, which is really great to have them, close by. Pythag Tech as well, who we've got a collaboration with in terms of machine learning and AI and all the stuff that we're doing. I think a few of us have shared some resources as well between all of us. But we even we're very close to cortical as well, and we're not doing anything remotely similar, but using similar cell types. And there's a lot of knowledge sharing and stuff that goes on too. I mean, there's heaps of other companies that we do talk to as well. But just as you said, this ecosystem and having the environment to talk to people, whether it's over lunch, whether it's in the kitchen or, you're out getting coffee or, without having this here, you're just siloed and there's just no opportunity for that to occur. Not to mention all the help that you give us as well in terms of providing the facility to begin with, but just, in terms of the moral support as well. I'm forever grateful for. But then also watching like your journey as well at CoLabs in terms of like the multiple sites and like I know how hard that is from previous businesses I've had. It's a nightmare. It's an absolute nightmare. So that's been super impressive and inspiring to watch as well in terms of the growth of CoLabs, yourself and Andrew. And also what's on the horizon as well.
Yeah, I mean, that was the first time I realized that quantum physics does not apply to the level of reality which we exist. Despite what other people might tell you, you definitely can't be in two places at one time.
Yeah,
I've tried. So it has been really hectic, and it's been very financially taxing having two sites up and running.
Yeah.
I mean, just for like scale's sake, like this site is, I don't know, like 850 square across 3 warehouses in Brunswick, whereas down there that's like close to like 3,200 square of space. So it's like, order of magnitude larger. And obviously that comes with an order of magnitude larger outgoings per month. So it's been really painful, but we've been, people are coming through now more and more and more. There's only like 100 square of space left in the upstairs area and plenty of room in the co-working lab, but it's just nice to feel it come to life, and it feels more like Brunswick. When I was down there the other day, I'm like, oh wow, it really feels like I was in Brunswick, and everyone in the team knows that means that you never really get anything you thought you were going to get done in the day because you're getting dragged out helping other people with all these other things. I feel like we're constantly in a loop of like, oh, can you help with this? And like, oh, this delivery, this packages has come, but amidst that chaos is the magic or the jazz of being a part of innovation as it happens. And it's a really nice thing. But it did feel like for the first 6 months I was kind of down there like, oh, this is great. I'm isolated. I can just like focus on work, whereas it feels like now it's really stepping up. Sweet. Is there anything else? I'm trying to think if there's anything else that's worth having a chat about.
I mean, we're still just working on a number of different products at the moment. We've got some really strong collaborations that we're working on, and just pushing forward. We have a lot of friends in the alternative protein space that have been working on some really great things as well. So hopefully across the entire sector, we can see some positive. I mean, I can't believe it's October already. I really don't know where this year's gone. So I was about to say, hopefully we can see some things this year. It's not going to be this year. It's going to be next year now.
Things are going to wrap up over the next little bit, but it's nice that things are wrapping up and you're still here, still persevering, still making stuff happen, still serving up delicious dumplings. Hey, you've there's multiple cell lines you're working on now as well, because I feel like it was just pork, but now there's also beef. No? What was it?
I don't know.
Is that just pork?
No, we've got lamb.
Lamb.
Yeah. We got lamb.
Yes, I knew. So there is 2 cell lines.
Yeah, we definitely got 2 up and going, but we are working on some others. We're hopefully like this time next year we'll have multiple other species / products that we've developed. So always using the same technology platform. But beef could be one of them. Yeah. You're like Nostradamus over there.
What a public reveal.
Yeah.
Sweet, man. Well, thanks so much for letting me bail you up for a chat again. It's always a pleasure, and it's it's been so lovely watching you do everything that you do and building out the team and being a part of the community. So for that, thank you. Let's hope that the next Christmas party we can have some MV stuff out and about. Yeah.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
No, it's good to see you. About time you came down to Brunswick.
I know. I'm sorry. All right. I'll Sick. I think that should do us.
Cool. Thanks,
Maybe.
Sam.